Hello everyone. It is Kenyon here. It is Basketball Rewind, and I am here on another day to do another mock draft. And this time it's going to be a little bit of a special one because it's going to be CBS Sports. And what makes CBS Sports special is they usually have multiple people that they have that offer their opinions on a NBA mock draft. And so that's really it. That's all. I'm going to give my thoughts. I'm going to actually also see how they differ between the two different correspondents. I'm looking right now. I'm going to put it on the screen just a second, but you have Kyle Boone and Adam Finkelstein are the two contributors for the NBA mock draft currently. And so, ahead of this, I'm going to give my thoughts, mainly focus on lottery, go a little bit past lottery here and there, but, overall go in that type of manner. And I'm curious what your thoughts are, if you agree or disagree. I do find these exercises interesting because I kind of see how I am compared to other people. And then at the end, I'm going to give my thoughts overall in terms of, did the teams in their respective mocks select in a way that I think that they probably should have or would be most beneficial to themselves. So let's get right into it, CBS. All right. So let's do this right here. So, just to start things off very easily, I'm just going to make the screen bigger for myself. Not that I think it makes a difference for you all. So, here are a few things. So, we're going to start with pick one for both Adam as well as Mr. Kyle. And both of them, since Sage is not paying me for ads, I'm just going to scroll down. Both of them pick, obviously, Cooper Flag. I don't think I have to go more in depth. It's nice because they actually do have the updated shuttle run and combine stats and data here that factor into why they picked the people that they picked. So I like that here. And that includes obviously things like their, how each respective player, did on the different drills, like the lane drill and whatnot. Okay, so moving on to Ace Bailey as number 3, because Dylan Harper's number 2 for the Spurs. If you haven't been following these mock draft reactions or reviews, the way that I view it is Dylan Harper, actually, this is the interesting part. They say Dylan Harper is actually going to go in a mock trade to the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, this gets a little bit more interesting because that is something that makes a little bit more sense to me than them just taking the best player available and running with it, because they're in a different situation where in theory they were poised to make the playoffs or play in this year had Wemby not gotten hurt, and they started shutting different parts of their team down with them recently acquiring a De'Aaron Fox and having a Stephen Castle. So their depth chart with a Dylan Harper, it's a nice looking depth chart on one hand. On the other hand, it's a little bit getting cluttered with different prospects, and you have to always wonder where are guys going to get their minutes, especially from a developmental standpoint. Okay, so number 3, Ace Bailey. I agree with that. If he's available, I think Philly should take him. Paul George had a bad year. I think he'll be better this year, but I think overall they're looking long-term and kind of building a shadow team that is strong at all positions. There is a world where they take VJ. I think VJ would be great, but if they want to do the 2-guard lineup thing with Jared McCain and Maxey, though it's small, I would lean against going with VJ Edgecombe coming off the bench. I'd rather bring on Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey can come along, I'll say slowly in a sense. I think he'll be an impact player. He'll have fun moments, but overall, in his first year, I think in an ideal world, you want a team that is ready to compete and kind of feed him those 20-25 minutes off the bench in a, call it a gentle way. There's definitely 3 potential positions that he can get minutes at. I think they could try him at the 4 just for fun, just to see what that looks like in a funky lineup where you're going small ball. But more than likely, you're going to see someone like an Ace Bailey probably play the 3, sometimes the 2 occasionally. He has the skills, I think, he has the overall body of work that shows that he's probably going to be a shot making 3 in the ilk of like a Rashard Lewis or whatnot. Just kind of curious what they see for him. Yeah, jumbo wing. Yeah, terrific long-term assets. Exactly. So I actually like this so far. Again, for most of these mocks, the top 4 is the top 4, except for Mr. Kyle here. Kyle feels differently because Kyle, right here, and I'll just see if I can actually mock this down, is Kyle right here is choosing Con Knipple, which is going to obviously be a little bit of an outlier compared to what we normally see. There's a video here. I don't think I'm going to click on the video just for the purposes of this video. However, so as I see here, let's see what they have. I think that they're looking for a 2. There's a world where VJ Edgecombe should be the one fitting here because I think he fits on both ends of the ball. Where they're looking at it is who has the higher floor. In my opinion, it is VJ Edgecombe because of his ability to cover ground athletically. They might go with someone such as Con Knipple here, which fair enough. I think he'd be a solid fit in Charlotte as well. They're looking essentially for a 2 guard and to fill out the last portion of their backcourt. Someone to pair with presumably LaMelo Ball. I do think that Mark Williams it sounds like he is up for grabs. We will see where that leads and if those rumors heat up in the offseason. Okay, moving along. Kyle now has, Baylor guard, VJ Edgecombe. Now, best player available for this team. It makes sense. The problem is that do you see the other Baylor guard as being good enough from the standpoint of creation? If you do see Keontae George as good enough for creation as a primary, then great. He is now, instead of being a combo guard, you are now shifting him more into a full-time point guard option. They're probably going to move off Colin Sexton anyways, so that could work. However, I would say that it is a little bit of a clunky fit. However, best player available, and I think that he would be a lot of fun in Utah either way. Moving along on the other side, you have Trey Johnson. So this is something that I've seen before, and then again, we go from there. Now, Mr. Adam has Kasparis very high up at 6th. Now, this makes sense if Washington sees Bob Carrington as a 2 rather than their full-time, point guard. I more see him as a 1, but fair enough. I don't necessarily see Kasparis as being a 2. He could probably play it from a height standpoint, but I don't think that's where his skill set is. I think his skill set is more of a on-ball creator, in the sense that he is setting guys up, a table setter, if you will, a point guard, and I think he's really good at understanding the floor. Got to the line 6.5 times during the season. I think that alone will translate, and being bigger, we're seeing this in the playoffs already, but being a bigger guard has its benefits, even if you are not the best defender, because you can use your length to make up for that, so it gives you a little bit more leeway from that standpoint, and there's a higher chance of you becoming at least an average defender if you put the work into it, but it's still not guaranteed. Okay, moving on to the Pelicans. Now, Con or Fears both make sense here. Now, in this situation, Con makes sense just from the standpoint that someone like a Jordan Hawkins hasn't fully panned out exactly how they wanted it to, and they just want, do they see CJ McCollum being there full-time down the road? Probably not. I think he's an expiring. I'm not looking at the depth chart and the sports track data right now, but I believe that he is an expiring this year, and so he might be a trade chip down the road. The other one would be Jeremiah Fears. Jeremiah Fears is a little bit more of a point guard project, but a high-end project at that. It totally makes sense for him to go here. What's interesting at this spot to me is they don't have a point guard for a good portion of next year. They could try it with CJ McCollum, but we know CJ McCollum is not a point guard. And so since CJ McCollum is not a point guard, right, we keep it moving, we move on down, and guess what? We're going to take Jeremiah Fears. DeJounte Murray is also out with a, I believe, an ACL tear, or is it his Achilles? I can't remember, but he's out for a good portion. I think it's at the Achilles. He's out for a good portion of next year. And so that gives a chance, someone like Jeremiah Fears, a chance to kind of establish himself in the league, get some real good minutes, and then just as he's hitting the rookie wall, so to speak, you know, in comes someone that he can kind of learn from. You know, I was a big DeJounte Murray fan, but I think I've since changed my opinion of him. I think he's still a good player, very talented, but you know, long term, not necessarily the type of distributor that I would like on a team. But I think he'll do just fine. But again, you get Jeremiah Fears in there, and you get a chance to build something new. And again, you're starting to build that shadow team with Yves, Misi, and others. We'll see. I won't touch too much on the Zion situation because that now is a situation where I just don't know what Joe Dumars is going to do with that situation. So there's a lot of things in flux there. Derek Queen. Now, Derek Queen for Brooklyn, I believe it's Adam on the left hand. Yeah, it's Adam on the left hand side. So Derek Queen is interesting. He fits beside Claxton. They could see him as the best fit available, or not best fit, but best player available. Just overall, he did not have the best combine. It has actually moved him back. There is a world where I see him moving all the way up to Brooklyn, but he can fit next to, the other big man that they have. And the other thing with Brooklyn, they're one of the only teams with cap space. They can build a team on the fly. But I think if I keep moving beyond that, I think the final part that's interesting about Brooklyn is they can take a guy that's kind of like a high floor, like a high offensive floor, I should say, ceiling in like a Derek Queen, and just kind of say, you know what, we're going to punt this year, but at least we got someone who is not a big swing, but it's a safe pick, but it's not going to, in his first year, he's not expected to move the needle that much. We will see. He might move the needle that much, but they might not expect this, so that might make sense. Again, he fits next to a faster guy like Claxton in the way that he plays, and actually that's why it's interesting. Fitting him next to Nick Claxton could make sense. Pick and roll between those two, where it's a big to big pick and roll, that could be very, very interesting. And if Derek Queen can space the floor just enough at the next level and keep defenses honest, you could see something very interesting. They're just going for really a completely new rebuild, so it'll be interesting. On the flip side, Mr. Kyle has them taking Yegor. Now, what's interesting about them taking Yegor is this makes sense to me as well. I could also see them getting Fears, but of course Fears is gone in this specific mock. So I could see them going with a point guard long term. I don't think that, I believe his name is Cameron Thomas. So Cam Thomas to me is not a point guard. He's more of a combo guard, really talented combo guard. He's very much a scoring guard, but he would be best paired with, in my opinion, a potential person who could pass the ball and kind of grow with him as a point guard. This is I don't know if Yegor is going to go all the way to the 20s, but Yegor is someone who could go. I agree with this. He has a very wide range in terms of his outcomes of not what he can be, but in terms of where he can go. Okay, so now we have something interesting. We have two centers going by two of these people by the Raptors. Now, what's interesting about this is this. On one hand, you have Malawech being selected, according to Adam. On the Kyle standpoint, it's Queen. I want to see what they say. Now I've already talked about Maluach. I think they're going with he's he's a Raptors-y pick on one, and I think that this is a very safe pick. I know not everyone will see it as a safe pick. I think it's a very safe pick in terms of the pathway for him to project to make winning plays and become a winning player and help a team. I think it's a very set pathway in a good way. I read JD. I'll put it in the link in the description, but I read his article on Maluach, and I've been talking to him about Maluach here and there. Definitely check out his work at Raptors HQ. I've been checking out his work about Maluach, and the interesting thing is we both agree like how they should develop him, and it's not really as a lob threat. He can be a lob threat because he's got the wingspan and stuff like that, but just because you're a roller doesn't make you a lob threat. I think he actually has much more touch, and there's a lot of offensive upside with Maluach than I think that than what meets the eye. He's going to have a very big catch and block radius. He has very soft hands for a big man, and I think that the sky is very, very high. I won't say the sky's the limit. It's too cliche, but the ceiling is very high. On the other hand, so they're saying, as an offensive hub. This, in theory, is a big that could fit in Toronto from a purely offensive standpoint because Darko likes bigs that play make and can set screens and stuff like that. The problem is that we don't have defense, and yes, the defensive numbers look good to end of the year while facing and having one of the worst schedules and one of the easiest schedules in the entire NBA. And so it's really hard for me to read too much into those specific numbers. We will see. That's Derek Queen. That's the other guy as well, Maluach. Okay, so this is interesting. So Houston, it seems like everyone has Houston taking a wing. I think that they could have used an additional wing defender. Obviously, Tari Eason, but having a couple of those guys, it seems like Cam Whitmore at times was subjugated in the rotation by Ime for various reasons. You want a guy in your rotation, a guy who's going to be able to grow with your overall team, and a guy who's going to be, call it toolsy, a forward, etc., etc. I think both Carter Bryant and Colin Murray Boyles are people that I could see the Houston Rockets taking. I don't lean one way or another because I think that they are also a destination that could be making a trade. The reasons for taking Colin Murray Boyles is that if you want someone who's more successful inside and has the higher end playmaking upside, maybe you bank on the shot. I think the mid-range game and his ability to create inside the arc is way further ahead than Carter Bryant. However, they might be feeling more of I know people have used the OG comparison. I will not quite use that comparison. I think maybe closer to the Tari Eason type of comparison, but not quite. He's not quite. He's a little stiffer, ironically, than OG in the drives, and then a little bit more fluid than OG in other areas. But Carter Bryant is another one. I've seen a little bit of limited creation from the standpoint of there's not been a lot of reps, and the reps that have existed have not been great. A lot of those reps you have to go back to high school. But as a true 3-and-D prospect, although his rim finishing is not the greatest either, as a true 3-and-D prospect, he's very interesting because I think he would have a good impact on a team that just was second in the West. Portland going for another guard. I could see them going for Jaeger if he's there. I don't know if I see Fears falling this far, but maybe. I don't know if they would go for a guy like Fears. I know that people have compared him to Dame Light. They just got rid of Dame, fair enough. But they do have Scoot, and they are trying to trade Anthony Simons. So this is somewhere where I actually see them going for more of a forward. I could see them. I don't think Noah Senge will be on the board at this point, but if he is, I would go for Noah Senge. I would consider going for Colin Murray Boyles or Carter Bryant, whoever's left at that point, because at the end of the day, Portland is another team that was on the rise, and I think with very minor adjustments, they could be slated for a big run this year, and shock out. They could be this year's Orlando Magic, minus the falling during the year. Okay, so we're almost on the lottery. So on the Kyle side, we see that the Bulls are selecting Kemon Malawach. I don't know if I see this. Or sorry, I see this if he falls this far. I think that would be the furthest that he would fall. There's rumors that they want to move off Vucevic. That's not that surprising because they've been trying to move off Vucevic for a while. He is an expiring center. Yeah, I think I see a center being selected here. If not, yeah, I mean, a power forward that could work down low, I could see that. But more or less, if there's a center here, I could see that center being potentially selected. So I've seen Derek Queen here. If Derek Queen falls this far, I could see him being selected there. If Malawach is somehow there, I don't see, like, because, for example, a team like Houston would definitely consider taking Malawach, depending on how they view their future with the really great center, but an aging center in Steven Adams. And so they might be looking long term. So Colin Murray Boyles, I don't hate it. I don't love it here. If they take him, they should. It makes you wonder about Patrick Williams. Maybe there's a deal for Patrick Williams or something like that. They just paid Patrick Williams a bunch of money. Oh, not a whole ton of money, but a bunch of money. Former 4th overall pick from FSU. So yeah, it'll be interesting. They have Matas, as they point out. They say Jalen Smith, but I don't know if I say that he's a shooter per se. I mean, he's solid, but I don't know if I call him a shooter. But overall, I don't hate that pick. I don't love it. I think that depending on who else is on the board, maybe they take a reach, takes Sorber here. I think that there's definitely some interesting options, depending on what direction that they want to go. All right, so the San Antonio Spurs, again, took Harper in both situations. In this situation, I'm zooming ahead. I'm skipping the Hawks just for a second. And here, Kyle has him taking Sorber. And that's interesting because, again, we know that Wemby doesn't like to play full-time center, and you want to protect Wemby. That makes sense. Liam McNeely I've seen a couple times. Again, I think that they're just going to go if they are taking the pick, they're going to take a big swing with the first one and then go safe with the next one. Kind of like how Golden State picked Kuminga for the first pick and then Moses Moody for the second. It's actually one that I predicted, but not on this channel. But it is one that I actually did predict. Okay, going back a second because I really am going to probably skip out on the OKC Thunder. But right here, in terms of the Atlanta Hawks, Walter Clayton Jr., I have to do a scouting report on him more in depth. So that's one thing. The stats look overall good, but do they really want another point guard here when they have Kobe Buffkin, Trey, and Dyson Daniels sometimes plays point. He can play point. I don't think he plays point there. I think he's more of a combo guard / wing type, defensive type, 3-and-D type, whatever. Insert all these different ways of describing him. I don't know if they're taking a point guard, is my point. I think that if Sorber's there, it's a great Sorber destination depending on how they view their relationship with Clint Capella, given that they will have a new GM. I think that there's a lot that could be in flux. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but I don't think that they are going to be likely to take another point guard when they already have an additional one on top of their all-star, former All-NBA level one that is there. Carter Bryant, he has him as a power forward, so this is where I disagree. But, I mean, if you took Carter Bryant and you had him backing up for Jalen Johnson, it's not that bad to give Jalen Johnson some rest. They're becoming a very long, very athletic team, and I think they're going to make a bit of a jump in the standings moving forward. the fact that they got a number 1 overall pick last year in Zachary Richeche, I wouldn't have taken necessarily that specific pick. I would have taken Alexander Sarr. However, he did exactly what I thought. I thought that he was a very high floor prospect, and I think he showed a little bit more upside than I think a lot of people suggested that he would. So that kind of rounds out the overall lottery. Let's just kind of look. Asa Newell fell all the way to 23 here. Jace Richardson, I've seen this pick and I don't hate it. I don't know if I see them taking Nick Clifford because I think that they're looking for someone. He is a two-way stud, but I think that they're looking for something a little bit different. So I do see like a Jace Richardson, if he's there, just go taking him. Drake Powell, this is a little bit high for Drake Powell, but I don't hate it. Let's see, any other notable names? I could also see them taking a reach if they really like him. By the way, Orlando, that being on a guy like Nolan Traore or Rasheer Fleming. Depending on how they view their long-term future with a guy like Jonathan Isaacs. I think Rasheer Fleming kind of provides a little bit of what he does from a defensive standpoint with a much higher offensive floor and probably not the same level of injury proneness. I can see Orlando Magic actually making a move during the draft to get a scorer. So I don't know if they're going to make this pick, but it is an interesting one for sure. Okay, so if here as Newell falling to the Wolves. Interesting, I guess maybe potentially Naz Reid insurance if he falls, if they really believe in the shot of Newell. I think I actually like Newell. I'm like, I think he should be a top 15 prospect in my opinion. And depending on how things shake out, I would reach on him if I'm certain teams. But like the Bulls would be a great destination for him. Brooklyn taking a point guard here, and yet. Who did they take in the beginning? Derek Queen. Okay, that makes more sense. And they took Yegor, and then okay. See, this is where it doesn't make sense. You took a point guard for the first pick, and then you're going to take another point guard. So then you're going to have two point guards dueling it out, both fighting for minutes, fighting to establish themselves. I don't know if I like that as much. Again, the other guy with the Wolves goes with Maxi Reynard. That's interesting because, again, the Naz Reid factor. Is Naz Reid staying or not? Let's see what they just say. They don't really even talk about Naz Reid, but they just talk about his skill. I think that they're looking also for long-term Rudy Gobert insurance because he has, I believe, 2 years left on his deal at about a $33 million and 38 or 38 or whatever. He re-upped and for a cheaper deal to give them a little bit more flexibility, which is nice for them. So yeah. There are a few others. Let's keep going. Okay, so now we're on to Gary and Cameron. So I'm just gonna zoom through this because I did not expect CBS to have more. I think that there's other guys as well. So let me just zoom forward. Nope, those are the final guys. So Gary and Cam. So where the draft really starts here is the first person that I'm saying, okay, Trey Johnson. I personally can see Trey Johnson and Ace Bailey swapping within the top 5. They both have VJ Edgecombe there. The next one is Con Knipple. So do they see a long-term replacement for? They have Chris Middleton. They're probably going to trade. He's more of a combo guard, but let's call him a point guard. Marcus Smart. And what do they see the future for the other guy, which is Jordan Poole? What do they see the future there? If Trey Johnson's there, if he somehow falls there, I think that they should take him. By the way, I have heard Con buzz with Utah, so I'm not surprised to see him here. Again, high floor prospect, very interesting. Now, this is where things get interesting. I like this pick by them. It's a little bit high in terms of who is available, depending on how you view Fears or Kasparis, but I think Kasparis has a higher floor than what Fears will offer in a way that, like, if you're trying to just run an offensive unit, plus depending on the Zion situation, how that plays out, if you do have Zion, and you have Trey Murphy, and you have other things, you might have something that's very, very interesting in this type of situation, where you might have a very powerful team. And even without Zion being there, you again, you're before DeJounte Murray comes along, you are having an offensive orchestrator set things up for you, even if it's not fierce. So this is where things get interesting. And he's also a big guard too. I don't know if I see them taking Colin Murray-Boyles, but if he views him as the top, I see that's why. So they're taking Colin Murray-Boyles to basically assuming that they don't see Zion there. And that's why they selected that. If that is the case, that makes sense. It really depends on how Joe Dumars sees himself and how the Zion situation plays out. Both are taking Kamon Malawach. The 0 rebounding in 21 minutes was not great. But yeah, it is one game. I've talked about it on this channel. Exactly. That he did have a solid defensive game, but I don't think he's the shot blocker that people think he is. I think he's defensive in other ways and offensive in other ways. Conversation for another day when we revisit that. Carter Bryant, I agree with. Kasparis, I don't agree with because they have Fred VanVleet, and then they just drafted Reed. So do they see Reed as a long-term option there? Or are they making a trade in this situation? Let's see what they say. Would be wise to, trade this pick and consolidate some of their depth for a star. So that's where it goes, yeah. So that, I guess, if they're trading for Giannis and Fred is part of that, or if they're trading for a star and Fred is a part of that package, well, in that situation, in that set of circumstances, it makes sense to have another point guard in the wings. Because maybe because of how much he makes, Reed Sheppard making $10 million is a really good salary ballast added to a trade as well. Okay, Rasheer Fleming, again, for me, I don't think I mentioned this, so I won't say again, but someone who could be potentially a sort of insurance for a Jeremy Grant who tends to be injured. 7'5" wingspan. I think he did really well. I think he's made his case throughout his season. He's definitely more of a power forward for sure. So I like that they did that. Jace Richardson, I don't know if I agree with that for the aforementioned reasons of too many guards. They're trying to trade guards, and they're trying to open up space for the former number 2 overall draft pick or number 3 overall draft pick, wherever. I think he was picked 3rd. This is Wemby, Brandon Miller, and Scoot Henderson. So at the end of the day, like, do I see them taking another guard and another guard who is in some ways a little bit undersized? Probably not, in my opinion, but stranger things have happened. Rasheer Fleming, I mean, same kind of idea as the above person taking Colin Murray-Boyles. I don't love it, don't hate it. I see them more going for a big. That's where the Derek Queen kind of stuff comes in. This is actually the first time I've seen this. Derek Queen falling all the way in this mock draft to San Antonio would be incredible because he would definitely fit next to Wemby, and would be a perfect fit next to Wemby, just from a standpoint of like what you're looking for, because Wemby can definitely cover ground defensively, but you're getting the offensive playmaking. That would be a one potent team for sure. And so in this mock you're seeing Asanul kind of moving up here, but Orlando don't like the fit. And notice how I'm skipping past OKC because it's just like they could take whoever, it doesn't really matter. This makes sense from the standpoint that the Wizards could swing big if they take someone safe with their top pick. And Jace Richardson to the Miami Heat, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I know that they do have Tyler Hero, but I really don't mind them getting another point guard or another playmaker. And he does a little bit of everything. So are there any surprises at this point? The fact that they don't see Noah Asenge as a top pick is very interesting because you're seeing him in the 20s here, and I don't even see Noah on this guy's board, which is very interesting. Shout out to Will Riley, of course. Yeah, so I think that is a good way to round out this mock. CBS has 4 mocks, I guess, going on at once. First time I've actually really kind of gone through it. I don't mind the mocks. I like kind of going through them. Hopefully you guys do too. Again, as always, sorry to always mention this, but like, comment, subscribe. Really appreciate it. And if you have your own thoughts about how people are ending up in different places, or what you think is going to happen from a Raptors standpoint, or really any other team standpoint, leave a comment below and let's talk about it. All right. Well, we're going to try to get through as many of these prospects as possible. So yeah, that's it. Take care and peace.